Hello guys and welcome back to Planet 40k. Now in this video I'm going to address something, a bit of a mistake if you like, a bit of an error that we did in one of the previous videos where we were talking about the rules, commentary and the balanced data slate. So a bit of an apology as well if you like. So when I was talking about the arriving from strategic reserves in the first battle round, that new amendment to it was mainly to do with the Night Scythe. But while I was talking about the topic, I mentioned that the Hypercrypt Legion hyperphasing ability doesn't work in the first battle round. Now, I've had a few comments in regards to yes, you can. So I thought I'd investigate further. I've been speaking to seasoned vets, I've been speaking to people that go to GTs, friends, and other YouTubers as well, in fact. One of them being Idic Beer, I've had a little chat with him. In fact, I think he approached me with this, so he must have the same issue. Basically, long story short, almost half the people are saying you can, and half the people are saying you can't. So I feel like I know the answer now, so I'm going to share the answer with you. But you can kind of see why it's so confusing. I mean, me and Nick in particular are, we've got a Necron fan base, if you like. And if we're kind of a little bit on the fence with it, then how's the standard ordinary player meant to know the answer? So let's get into this then. What are we talking about? Let me get onto my Necrons page, the Hypercrypt Legion, which is the hyperphasing abilities, their detachment rule. At the end of your opponent's turn, you can take a number of models within your army off the battlefield and put them into strategic reserves. Now, let's imagine you went second. So your opponent has their turn. At the end of their turn, you decide to do the hyperphase ability and put some units into reserves. Now, we're not talking about units that are starting in reserves, where they started on the battlefield and they're going to be placed into reserves. That part is the key part here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you on the screen, if I can find it, the main part that you kind of need, and what's the main problem, or the big paragraph in question, which is in the Leviathan pack. I don't know if you've got the cards, it'll be like a little pamphlet kind of foldable rules, or you can find it on Wikipedia. It's step number 8 of the Leviathan rules, which is declare battle formations. Now if you skip the 3 bullet points, because it's not really to do with that part, skip the next part about when both players have done so. There's that last paragraph, and it is a full paragraph here. So I'm going to read it out, I'm going to give you my opinion on it, and then I'm going to explain what it actually is. So reserve units cannot arrive during the first battle round, and any strategic reserves or reserves that have not arrived on the battlefield by the end of the 3rd battle round count as being destroyed, as are any units embarked within them. So that would be your ghost arc, I suppose. This does not apply to units that were placed in strategic reserves after the first battle round has started. So there's a lot to digest there. Now, I'm going to give you both of the points of view, and then I'll give you what I think is the correct answer. From my point of view, my personal rules as intended point of view, I believe that very last line, which has the bracketed area, this does not apply to units that were placed into reserves. I believe that applies to the part where it talks about units being destroyed after turn 3. Because if you put a unit in to strategic reserves from the hyperphase ability in turn 4, perhaps, then in theory it's destroyed because it has to come out by turn 3. So they've put that bracketed line in to say it doesn't apply if they've gone back into reserves. That's just my opinion, and I think that's rules as intended. However, there is no proof whatsoever that bracketed line does not apply to the entire paragraph. In fact, I don't think there's even a full stop. Let me just double check. There's a comma. Is there a comma? Let me check. In fact, it's just one big sentence, in fact. So this probably gives it more evidence to suggest that you can. What people are doing, what tournaments in fact are doing, most tournaments, if not all the big tournaments, they are applying that bracketed sentence to the entire paragraph, which will include the first line of this paragraph, which actually says units cannot arrive during the first battle round. But if you go to the last line in brackets, this does not apply to units placed within the strategic reserves after the first battle round has begun or has started. So what this means is, going back full circle here, if you've hyperphased from your opponent's turn 1, ready for your first turn in fact, because you've not even had a turn yet, in theory they didn't start in reserves, it's happened after the first battle round has begun, So that rule of being able to enter the first battle round, being as a restriction, does not apply to them. So therefore, that's the actual reason why the hyperphasing strategic reserve units can enter in the first battle round. Only the ones that have left the battle round, or left the battle, rather than the ones that stayed in strategic reserves from the start, if that makes any sense. So if you've got like a ghost arc full of warriors that started in strategic reserves, they cannot enter in turn 1. However, if you had a ghost arc with some warriors that started on the battlefield and you went second and you hyperphased them out in your opponent's first turn, you can bring that unit in because it didn't start in reserves, it started on the battlefield. I hope that makes sense. I hope I've cleared it up. To me, I still believe it only applies to the second part. I can't prove any different. You've got to almost be a rules, a lawyer, or have a lawyer's degree or something to get through some of these rules within the actual Games Workshop rule set. But hopefully that's cleared something up for you guys and avoided any confusion from the previous video. So guys, apologies again. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.